BB Game Dev, I agree with that. Following verbatim first is important because one of the things that so years ago when I'm starting to learn how to code, I used to get really excited and I used to do my own thing and I used to change the code so much that in the next lecture, so I'd go ahead and I'll just
It didn't work
try things
anymore.
out.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work anymore because I changed the code so much. So yes, following verbatim first, so you get the whole thing and it's exactly the same as the instructor,
I mean, this is why in
and
Discovery
then
Data, the
tinkering.
first thing I tried to teach is what is a variable, what is a function, what
Yeah.
is an array. Because once you've got those, you can play, but you need those.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. It's one of those fundamentals. I really, really want to do like an ABCs of coding and not even talk about coding, but the actual concept um of what it is in real life. I don't know how it's going to work yet, but
I
everybody
know how. We dress one of us up as an angry genie.
well volunteered there. Yeah, thank you. I
Yep.
shall.
For those of you who don't know, I constantly refer to coding as dealing with a grumpy genie because you get exactly what you asked for, but not what you wanted.
Oh man, it's going to turn into a really bad '90s style
Skit, yeah.
kids. Yeah,
But it's very much that. It's much more an exercise in formal logic. You know,
yeah.
you think what you've said is this, but actually you've let in all of this error.
I really I like graphics. That's why I like Blender and everything. And graphical design when it comes to your code flow. If you write it as a flow chart and then refer your code back to the flow chart to make sure it makes sense, is one way of tackling that
Smart.
approach. And we all do coding every day. If in the morning you make yourself a cup of coffee, cup of tea, or a breakfast, or whether it's toast or whether it's cereal, you follow a prescribed method. You follow an algorithm to make your breakfast, whatever it is, or your cup of your drink. And so you could actually write that in code. What do you do? Well, if the cup is empty, which it probably is, you need to pour water in it, and you can start thinking about at what level of abstraction, because at some point you would create a function called make tea. You wouldn't dive in and put all of the details in at one level. You'd start to go up a level of abstraction and just say, what are the headlines of what I'm doing today? And
Hmm.
I think that sort of thing might help out newcomers. I think it would have helped out me. So it's something that I do want to have a look at and see if I can make it so
Well,
it's
I
not
remember
too
months
noddy.
ago when you and I went to a government office and, you know, explaining what our company did, and the woman behind the desk was just like, I could never do coding. Like, I mean, I learned it, and if I learn it, you can.
Yeah,
And
and
we
a
just
lot.
gave her the basic, you know, this is a function, this is a variable, this is how you make a cup of tea.
Yeah, and she was like, "Oh, I get it." Yeah,
Yeah.
nested if statements.
Nested if statements. Oh,
If
unbroken while statements.
unbroken while statements.
While true.
It's just a game loop.
Yep.
I have just noticed that we've gone over the hour and we're still
We have.
rambling away as we always do. This is a great time if you've got any questions over what we've been through, or if you've got any questions that we haven't gone through, or as Jan likes to say, take it away.
I drive up. No. If you've got any questions, concerns, thoughts, interpretive dances, jingles, or poems, I did it wrong.
Wife,
Wife dot make tea.
only if you,
If divorce count is greater or equal than 2, self make tea.
Uh, yeah, I would say that was probably the safest answer to that question.
Yeah.
Yes. Ask
Oh,
nicely.
allergies kicking in.
Yes, I think you need to put "ask nicely" in within the function call.
I don't know. I've never enjoyed other people doing stuff for me.
Mr. Independent.
No, it's not even that. It's I feel bad being the kind of person who expects everyone to bring me things.
Okay.
I remember when
That
I
makes sense.
first moved to New York, and I was working in finance, and I've been there
Yeah.
like 2 days, and I'm at my computer doing some data editing for a corporate finance company, and a guy came in and knelt at my feet and started cleaning my shoes. I'm just like,
That is a bit weird. I'll probably have the same reaction.
it's a bit weird, especially when you come from a country that has a class system,
Hmm.
right? Like, I
Okay.
don't want a servant. And the rest of the office is just like, no, it's just Miguel. He comes around once a week and shines everyone's shoes. Like, no, he doesn't. I will shine my shoes.
That's what I've never heard of that. That's
Where do either of you find inspiration to make new courses? It's
that's good.
usually behind the couch. I think this is probably slightly different for both of us.
Yep.
Mikey, where do you find inspiration?
So there are two
Tequila.
things. Ah! There's a joke that goes along like anyway. So I think there are two main sort of inspirations that will sort of like be the genesis of a course. One of them is you guys. You say, "Oh, we want to learn X," and I'm like, "That sounds interesting. Let's go," and off we go. So that's one of them is external, and the other one is internal, where I go, "Oh, this is really cool. I want everybody to know about this. I think this is going to help people out." So it's one of the reasons why in sort of all of my recent Blender stuff, there's a little bit about, hey, if you use a bit of scripting here, we can speed up our workflow massively. Instead of this taking you half an hour to export all of your assets, let's spend that half an hour writing a little script that does it for us. Look at that. Then if you need to make a change to your assets and re-export them, you click a button, it's done. I mean, that sort of thing for me, that's a great example. One of the most recent ones that I can pull out where it's that this is really helpful. How can I help other people understand how this is put together? Because obviously I can give you that bit of code and explain how it works. That's what we've done with the Mixamo exporter script on the website. But when it comes to actually being able to produce that, if you know the why and the how of how to do it, you can change it. So let's say you don't want a GLTF, you'd now understand how to switch all of that out, so you exporting as an OBJ or an FBX. You'd have the prerequisite knowledge in order to do that, and I think that's really, really important. And
Yeah, and typically what happens with me is I'll be playing around in Godot with a technique I don't know, or trying to make a thing like, can I make a level out of hexagons that change height based on a height map? You know, something silly like that.
Yeah.
And, or, you know, how would I make a very simple Bomberman? So I'll play with different techniques and try and move the NPCs. And the next thing you know, we've got a fun game. And then we have the conversation, is this a course or is this a game?
Yeah.
And usually it's a course. So with the God of War Action RPG, for example, as a course, it was playing around with the assets we made to make 3D mazes procedurally.
And it
once
just
that's
grew
done,
from
playing
that,
with
didn't
different
it?
movement systems, and it just grew.
Yeah.
And it's a very organic growth. And the problem you've got there is you need to take a step back and think, what am I teaching? Like, what's the final goal?
Yes.
Because traditionally, when you make a curriculum, at least the way I was taught, you start with the end goal and work backwards. Like, what do they need to be able to do at the end? What happens just before that and all the way back? If I'm making a big course, like with Discovering Godot, I've got an idea that I want to start very, very simple. Maybe not even in 2D, maybe just like an interface game, which is why we did Looney Lips, right? It's you're just writing words in because you need to understand variables and functions and input, and a couple of things like conditionals. From there, we can go into a very simple 2D game. Then I was messing around and started making a fun little stealth system. So, okay, we've got stealth, we've got basic NPCs, we've got Heistmeisters.
Yeah.
And from there, we start going to 3D. We've got, the game that I made with Mikey the very first time we met in 4 hours. We've got Cube Kickabout, which is still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with me, it's usually playing with a technique and then letting it develop into something fun. And once it becomes fun, I can turn it into a course. If it's not fun, I don't want to.
So one of the things
if I don't want to, I don't think you guys want to.